So that's what we're trying to solve, messy fingers, broken cookies. And we solve this with the 12-step design process. It starts off with defining a problem.
The next step was brainstorming.
Third step, research and generate ideas.
Then we had to identify our criteria and constraints.
We explored possibilities.
Then we selected an approach.
We developed a design proposal after we selected that approach.
Then we made an actual tangible model or prototype.
And after that 6-week build period, we tested and evaluated that design.
Then we refined our design based on the tests that we came up with.
Creating or making a solution is actually the step after refining the design. You just fix the problems that the design had, and that's how you get to your final product.
And the last step is to communicate our process and results, which we're doing right now.
Okay, starting off, defining a problem is, the problem with our, in the world is broken cookies, messy fingers, or the cookie falling in the milk. Obviously, that's a problem for a lot of people who dunk cookies.
Next, we went to the brainstorming phase. We researched a lot of ideas that had already been out there. One of them we came across was the Dunking Buddy, and it's a very simple design. It consists of a magnet tab on the outside and a cookie tray on the inside. You just slide it up and down in the cup and it dunks your cookies for you. Next, we came across the Dipper Spoon. It's made specifically for Oreos. You just get a cookie out, stick it on there and dip it down in there, then eat it. Next, we came across the Dunky Cup. It doesn't really do much for the dunking process. It just kind of organizes your cookies for you.
And I want to point out, we got all of these products at no cost to us, so we'd like to thank all three of these companies, the Dunking Cup, the Dipper, and the Dunkin' Buddy, for sending us free products for our research. The head of Dunkin' Buddy is actually in the crowd tonight. His name's Arthur Watson. We'd like to thank him for being by our side through this whole process. We'll talk about him a lot more later.
Next, we did our research, and then we started generating our ideas. As you can see right here, our first idea was to make a chopstick-like design, and it consisted of two chopsticks and a area on the end to put your cookies in and close it up and dunk it down in the milk. The next design we had, it involved the Dunking Buddy. During our testing with the Dunkin' Buddy, which we used lots and lots of cookies, we concluded that when you put more than one in there, it kind of got a little top heavy and wanted to spill over. So we came up with an idea. We would put rails on the inside of the cup to make it a little bit more balanced. But we soon found out that the cup itself was not actually manufactured by them, so we just kind of had to toss that one out.
The next step, identifying criteria and constraints. Our first constraint was making it dishwasher safe, because not a lot of people, especially these days, I know me for sure, doesn't want to sit there and wash something after you've dunked a cookie in it. So making it dishwasher safe was important to us, and a lot of these products weren't actually, so we know that gave us a step up in the market if we did that. Another constraint was making it food safe. That's a must, obviously, because you're going to be eating off of it. And we actually did manage to food safe both of our products, so that was a big plus for us. Cameron, tell you about some more constraints.
Another constraint we had was to make sure that it was user-friendly, and we found this out from our good buddy Calvin, who, after many packs of Oreos, concluded that it was very much user-friendly.
Exploring possibilities, we first explored the thought of a chopstick design, as you can see from our sketches. I'll let Cameron show you this while I talk about it. This was our first design, obviously. It wasn't too effective, and we found that making the finger straps and the axle on top wouldn't actually be very effective in manufacturing. So we decided that we needed to move on to a tong-shaped design, and I'll let Cameron tell you about the possibilities we explored for the Dunkin' Buddy redesign.
So after we went through that process, we actually reached back out to the Dunkin' Buddy group themselves and asked them if they would be interested in some optimizations to their current product. So they of course said yes to that, and we came up with we like to call it Dunkin' Buddy 2.0. This was the first design we came up with. We made it just a little bit taller so you could fit more cookies in there and it wouldn't kind of tip over and they fall out. We also added a lid on top to make sure that cookies stayed in there and didn't just float out the top. We also added holes on the side to make sure that milk came in at even angles, because that was one of the main problems that we encountered at first. Cookies would just kind of, if you got a little aggressive with it like we did, it kind of just came out the top whenever you went down.
Selecting the approach was different than your traditional group, I guess, because we thought that it was completely necessary that we needed to take two routes with this, a completely new design in the Dunkin' Daddy and a redesign of the Dunkin' Buddy 2.0. The approach we selected was the Tong design with the Dunkin' Daddy, and the Dunkin' Buddy 2.0 just featured making it taller and adding some minor improvements.
And next we made our models and prototypes. We used a CAD software called Inventor. We made our products in there, and then we 3D printed them out using PLA plastic with our 3D printer. And this is what we came out with in the end, or next, because as the testing went on, we concluded that you couldn't really get down in here with these small slots on the side, because me myself have big fingers and I can't really just get down in there easy. But next, we also got rid of the lid because we kind of decided that it was really an unnecessary step that would add to manufacturing costs in the end.
During the prototyping of the Dunkin' Daddy, this is the first design we made, obviously. Other designs we made are not featured here tonight. We didn't have enough room on the table and we figured it wasn't really necessary. But we actually, for our first concept of the tongs, we went to Walmart and bought a cheap 99-cent pair of tongs. We took it to shop class and cut the end right off of it, and we taped 2 sticks right on the end and just made a working pair of tongs. And it was effective, but it looked really bad, and they ended up getting broken very easily. So we figured that it needed to be a one-piece print of plastic from the 3D printer, and it was effective. It cost about $1.01 to make based off of a price to weight ratio. So we figured that we can get some pretty good margins when we take it to manufacturing.
Once we refined these designs, we went back to the testing phase, and one of the tests we went through was to make sure that both these designs were durable. We dropped them quite a few times. Some were accidental and actually broke a few of them, but it's okay, we're good now. But our next criteria, or our next test, was to make sure it was user-friendly again, and we got Calvin to go through that again for us.
Another test we used was to make sure it was dishwasher safe. We put both of these in the dishwasher at our homes, and we found that they were dishwasher safe. This is the one we didn't put in the dishwasher, but we know that it is because we put one made of the exact same material and the exact same paint and all that through there, and it worked fine.
The next thing we did was make sure that everything worked well together. I know in the beginning we had a different set of magnets on this, and they were not as strong as the ones we currently had on there. Whenever you put it in a cup, it just kind of slide down. I know myself would definitely not want that. And so we went with the original design that the Dunkin' Buddy had, and their magnets were a whole lot better than ours, so we just kind of put them on there.
We had to refine the design multiple times. We found that dripping was the biggest problem, especially with the Dunkin' Daddy. The first design, it tended to get caught in the reservoir right here, if you can see that. And it dripped for about 20 seconds without stopping. And if you're trying to eat a cookie for any amount of time, you probably have something better to do with your time than to sit there and watch your cookie drip. We solved that problem by making holes in the bottom of the reservoir right there. And we ended up getting rid of these holes once again because we found once we put the food safe shellac on there, that's a tongue twister, that it helped waterproof it in a way. And so we ended up removing the holes because it added an extra unnecessary step to the process.
Also, during this refining stage, we went through, we went back and forth weekly with the CEO of Dunkin' Buddy himself, Arthur Watson, and he gave us a lot of feedback on what his thoughts were and how we could make our products better and what we could do to, I guess, tweak it and make it, ready to market.
Creating and making solutions to the design, like I said. We food safety by putting shellac on there, and that also solved this drip design. We took the magnets off the original Duncan Buddy and we fixed them on the 2.0, and that solved the problem with it sliding a lot. So we have our final solutions here for you, and they're right where we need them to be right now.
The last step, communicate process and results. We actually took a trip to United Plastics over near Mount Airy High School with the other group, the Slurp Stoppers, and we talked to Stanton Sanders there. He's kind of the branch manager of that, manufacturing place, and he talked to us about injection molding, which is the next step that we want to take with this, because that is currently what the Duncan Buddy itself is made out of, or that's the process they go through to make it. And unfortunately, with our $200 budget, like Drew said earlier, we were not allowed to get an injection mold for that.
This last step as well, communicating processes and results. Going forward with the project, in the real world, we hope to franchise these things maybe, and put some like team logos on there, maybe make them sell to different markets. It would appeal to different people, putting NBA, NFL logos on the side of one of these things. One thing we found with the first ones we made, we put our names and nicknames on the side of one of these things, and it was pretty funny, and you could do that for anything you wanted to, because these things are pretty plain and you can make them whatever you want to be. And we'd like to thank many people for helping us through our project. Of course, Mr. Suffin for being with us, not only in this class, but all 4 years of my high school career, and I'm sure Cameron's as well. He's taught us what being an engineer is really like. Not only that, but also people skills and just ways to solve problems. We'd like to thank our mentor, Stephanie Slate, for just off the top of my head. She came here every Friday morning, 7:45, and met with us, talked about where our project needed to go, gave us suggestions. She gave us some vinyl decals for the sides of the Duncan Buddy, and those are very helpful. They stay dishwasher safe. We'd like to thank Stan Sanders for giving us a tour of the plastics company at no cost to us, showing us how these things are done in the real world and how expensive it is. And we'd like to thank Arthur Watson for being by our side. He didn't even have to. Day one, he was with us. I contacted him, and he sent us some free merchandise to test out, and he's given us many pointers. He's traveled down here from New Canaan, Connecticut, I think, and that's a long way.
That's about it. Thank y'all for coming out, and hope you have a good day.
I'm extremely proud of these 10 individuals. A lot of people don't get to see what these students are really made out of, and I really think over the last 4 years, 3 years for some of them, that I've got to see that. Each one of these help their community, each one of these helps their school in teams and clubs. Most of them are in the tops of their classes. I'd say all of them are in the top 20 of their classes, and that means a lot. So we're not just developing students that can go to college. We're developing students that can go into the real world and be able to support themselves and be able to act the way that they need to act. Let's give them a round of applause for that. I also look out and I see several Project Lead the Way students. If you're a Project Lead the Way student, whether you're at North Surrey High School or at another high school, we have a group here from Burlington. Go ahead and stand up. These guys are the next generation of engineers. They might not be the types of engineers that make stuff, but they're the types of engineers that's going to go out and solve a problem. So, with that being said, I look forward to seeing what y'all have in the future and being able to see the progress that y'all make in your own lives. So, thank you for taking this class, thank you for taking the program, and being a part of your school and what all it means. So now we come to the interactive phase. You're going to get a chance to have some refreshments and come up and ask each one of these groups different questions. Each one of these groups have been through about 80 days worth of inventions. So they have a lot of answers. They like to talk. So come up, give some good feedback to them and allow them to tell you just a little bit more about their product. I appreciate y'all coming out, and I appreciate every one of you. Your parents, I really appreciate you. Thank you for standing behind your child for one, and thank you for standing behind me as a teacher. In today's world, that means a lot, and I appreciate that. So, I appreciate you coming, and have a good night and be safe. Thank you.